Hi everyone. It's Alex Partridge here, wellbeing ambassador for WageStream. We're here today to have a webinar with two-time Olympic gold medalist Alex Gregory and a fellow previous crewmate about all things wellbeing, our Olympic journey, how we looked at well-being when we were part of the Olympic team, and then the difficulties of moving from the Olympics into sort of normal life, and actually how much more complicated it is, and how we both adopt an approach to kind of keeping it simple. Just very quickly, I'm the well-being ambassador for WageStream. I'm very passionate about well-being through my own personal story. And the reason I'm involved with WageStream is, WageStream is providing a financial well-being solution that I think is really, really prevalent to society in order to alleviate financial stress by allowing people to access their own personal liquidity and lots of other elements of financial well-being. And I think that financial well-being, in my eyes, is crucial to unlock the other elements of well-being, which are physical, social, and mental. And you have to do all of them together. So anyway, enough from me. Alex, welcome today. Thanks very much. Can you just tell everyone where you are in the world and maybe what happened last night with these new arrivals to your environment?
I had a sudden panic then. What new arrivals? I don't need any more children. But I'm in sunny Somerset right now. We're in the middle of nowhere. It's the way I like it. And we've just had 6 kittens born. So my 3 children are running around crazy with excitement, and we're trying to keep peace in the house. But it's very exciting.
Oh, brilliant. Well, look, Alex, thanks very much for joining us. You and I have spent many years rowing together from 2004 till I retired in London in 2012. You were obviously much better than me and managed to go on and secure 2 Olympic gold medals. But we both look at the world through similar eyes about what's important to manage people's lives and well-being. I wonder if you could just tell us a little bit about what it was like to be an Olympic athlete and kind of the challenges maybe that you faced at that time, to kind of win those Olympic gold medals.
Yeah, the challenges. I mean, you're starting off on a mega subject right there, because the challenges are huge, and as they are with everything we try to do. When we have a dream and we want to try and achieve something, the challenges always seem too far away. But for me, I think I'm a slow learner. I've got to accept that now. I've picked that up straight away. Now in my life, I'm a slow learner, and it took me so many years to understand, specifically in sport, how to cope with the training, how to deal with the pressures, the situations I was in, how to understand what I needed to do to reach my potential or where I wanted to get. So it took me 8 years of disasters basically to get to even just the start of being able to do my job properly, i.e. perform, i.e. win a race. That's pretty crucial in sport, winning races. It took me 8 years to be able to do that. And I think along the way, my biggest challenge was coping with pressure. And I didn't know how to. I didn't have the toolbox to be able to do that. And when I think about you specifically, I know you quite well now, having spent lots of time in the boat. I feel like you were someone who could turn it on when you needed to. The racing situation was like, that's what it's all about. But for me, it just wasn't. And I hated that competitive edge, that competitive side.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm naturally that competitive. So I really had to struggle through that and learn that.
So it's so funny that you're one of the most successful people in the sport of rowing, and yet you hated the actual race itself. I mean, look, there's lots of challenges that we faced when we were training. Just being able to deal with the volume of training that we were having to do every day, to stay motivated every day, to be able to maintain our performance for such a long period of time. It was tough, but I still remember when you made that jump from being in the single, rowing on your own for a long time up to 2008. Then you made this big leap to rowing with myself and the rest of the 4, and then as you move through the team and winning those medals, relying on others. And I guess it's that, did you find that it's interesting when I look at well-being and the broader um, sort of concepts and elements that go into it. It's that social connection, that community that you belong to, that I always felt brought the best out of me. And I mean, can you explain a little bit about? I know when we've discussed this in the past, that was a huge being connected to your fellow oarsmen was massive.
Absolutely. And actually, I know the exact time and date when that transition happened for me. And I was basically at the end of my tether. I was sitting on the sidelines in Beijing in 2008. I was watching you win your silver medal in the 8. And the race that changed everything for me was Mark Hunter's, our mutual friend, Mark Hunter. He was in the lightweight double. And I just happened to be sat in the friends and family stand. I was reserve. I don't know if I'd mentioned that. I was reserve. And I sat in the stand 2 foot away from Mark Hunter's mum, dad, and brother. And they didn't know I was there, but they were watching their son and brother race his Olympic final. And Mark came down in front of us. He was in the lead. A minute later, he crossed the line first, won the Olympic gold. And this family just broke down. I've never seen emotion like it. It was such pride, excitement, joy. The tears flowed off their faces. And I wasn't watching the racing, or I wasn't aware of the Olympic Games. I was aware of that family's emotions right there in front of me. And it shocked me. It made me realize that those 8 years of disasters, or seeming to me they were sort of disasters and failures, I had never accepted that I wasn't good enough. I had never accepted that I couldn't cope with a situation, or not accepted, I mean admitted. I'd never spoken to anyone about any stress or fear or worry I had. I couldn't deal with the pressure, but I didn't admit that to anyone. And that moment, seeing that, made me realize that, anything we want to achieve in life, no matter how big or small the goals are, we can't do it alone. We can't do it on our own. And there's no point. Why struggle? It'll take you longer. It'll be harder. People want to help. So ask for help, and people want to help. It'll make them feel good for a start. They'll help you, give you experience, give you insights, give you like a sort of a balanced perspective, whatever, help you on your way, and it'll just be better for everyone. And once I'd accepted that, then things turned around on a sixpence. And I got to row with you after that.
Yeah, the two Alexes. Well, no, I mean, it's really interesting you say that, Alex, because your experience, rowing in a single scull, and you're not quite meeting the performances that you had the capability of doing, and then connecting in with that community of other people, being in that crew, which is what I always loved about rowing, and I didn't realize until I finished is why I loved it so much, was that you had such a strong social purpose with a community of like-minded people. And I think from my perspective, that's really crucial in terms of your well-being. And I think if we think about well-being in the Olympic environment, so much of the things that are crucial to well-being outside of that environment were put in place for you. That the structure of the team, the training programs that were set for us, we had to be on top of our absolute physical best, and mentally all we had to think about was one thing, was to be the best that we could be to win that Olympic medal. So you're really looking after the kind of core elements of well-being: physical, social, mental. And then the financial side was very simple, because we didn't spend any money because we were training all the time, and we were very privileged to be supported. But when you supported financially to be able to achieve those things, so your life is simplified massively. And when you look back on kind of that's what I loved so much, is that sort of shared, simple, singular purpose in life, that we had together as a group. What is it when you look back on being an Olympian that you loved, so much?
Well, I've touched on it already. I hated the competition. That's the first thing. I know that straight away. I hated the competition. No matter how sort of good or confident I got in the sport, I still feared the competition. But what I loved was the journey. And this is where we are so alike. I loved the challenge of bringing a crew together, sort of finding a way to mold individuals, all trying to do the same thing with the same purpose, the same singular goal, But everyone goes about it in different ways, and everyone has their own opinions about something. And if you can narrow that down and bring that together, that's the journey, that's the challenge. You know, my dad actually summed it up quite well last year or a couple of years ago. He climbed up to the top of Mont Blanc. And this is like, me and Dad have always been interested in this, and this was his chance. He went with a mate, and they were guided up to the top, and he got to the top of Mont Blanc. And I asked him afterwards, what was it like? Were you pleased at the top? And he said, it was all right. You know, the top was the top. What he loved was learning about the history of it and being immersed on the way up at the huts they stayed in, and learning about who's been there before and what's happened before. And it translated so well to my feeling about rowing and about crews and about teams. For me, it was all about those journeys and those sessions we did together. And I remember a period of time when we were together in a pair, and I swear to you, we went away from those training sessions knowing without a question of doubt that we had done more than anyone else on that lake, in that training venue on that day. We had crossed the T's, dotted the I's. We had done absolutely everything that we could do on that day. And that sort of memory is what I really love now. I don't really remember the racing. I don't really remember standing on the podium. I remember those types of sessions, the training camps, the struggles we had. That's where the satisfaction and enjoyment is for me now.
Yeah, I mean, I look back, and it's interesting you say that. You know, when you climb to the top of Mont Blanc, or when you're even standing on the medal podium, and you can tell me if you feel the same. But it was the journey there that, because you all had that same singular purpose, and you were all, you know, keying into that same thing. It was the journey towards the medal that was the most enjoyable thing, and the memories that stand out most in my mind. And when I think about, you know, why did I love rowing so much? You know, people say, oh, you know, was it because of achieving the achievements that you achieved? And for me, what it took me to understand is I actually just loved helping out my fellow crewmate, being accountable, having that strong, you know, same purpose-led community that I keyed into every day, and then that made me achieve things that I didn't think was possible. You know, you talk about those days where we went out and did that training. If I look back at the training now that we did, you know, 250K a week, 7 days a week, 1 day off every sort of 4 to 6 weeks. I mean, I am terrified at even thinking about that sort of training. Yet we loved it so much at the time. It's really interesting, you know, that you say that. But I just wonder, you know, we're here to talk about well-being, and I think we need to kind of, we're talking about the memory of that moment being so those moments being so clear and so fruitful for ourselves. But I know that you and I have, outside of sport, moving into the normal world, have had our different ways around, you know, maintaining our best self. For me, you know, I think the story is clear, and people know that I have no problem with admitting that I really struggled in the transition from sport to the corporate world to normal life, to understand who I was. And that's how I got involved in this. Maybe you just talk about a little bit about what was well-being like for you as an Olympian, and then maybe, you know, kind of the journey that you've gone on, you know, to now.
Yeah, sure. Well, you've already mentioned these points, but I see it as the life as an Olympian or an athlete is super straightforward, super simple, particularly in our sport, because we've had the greats before us leading the way, setting the framework out for us. And also we had Jürgen Grobler, the coach, who knew what he needed, knew what he wanted from us. We just had to adhere to the program and the way that was the way we needed to do it. So life was very simple. Physically, we knew we had to find a way to deal with the training, get over the training and perform. Mentally, we had that stimulation from the pressure, the expectation, the satisfaction of completing the training. So we were mentally stimulated, physically stimulated, socially stimulated, because we were all going after that same goal together. A group of mates, this is the only thing I miss now really, is that group of mates trying to do something special. And then, like you mentioned, sort of financially, the idea of funding it gets a bit more complex. We can talk about it a bit later, but the idea of funding is that it keeps things simple. You don't have to worry about other jobs. You get your funding to train, to focus, so you can win those gold medals. So there's sort of 4 pillars that we're really taken care of. And then when that's removed, when you transition, when you leave, suddenly it all falls away. And I sort of found it a shock. I don't know why I found it a shock, because you sort of know it's going to happen. And I have no qualms about saying I was super lucky. I finished on a high with, I did everything I wanted to do. I left on my terms. I wasn't shoved out, or I didn't get injured, you know. I left on my terms, and I don't regret that change, that movement away from the sport at all. But it doesn't make it easier. And I feel a little bit like just all the normal stuff that people learn to deal with or learn to cope with when they're younger, I suddenly had to try and struggle with when I was 32, where all those pillars, those 4 pillars, were just removed.
Yeah.
And
with 3 kids and 2 dogs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
With and then the family side of it. So we had chosen as a couple to have a family through that period, and so this goes into the financial side. Suddenly, that sort of pillar is removed, and suddenly I have to sort of look after 3 children. They rely on me, a family, without having a definite wage each month that, incidentally, wasn't enough to cover the family. So I was in debt. And so I'd been burying my head in the sand, quite frankly, because I needed to, or personally, I sort of needed to devote myself to that gold medal. When I came out of that, suddenly the realization was there. I popped up out of the sand, and actually, I'm in significant debt. I don't know how to. I don't have a single purpose. I don't have a community around me. I don't know what to do. I've got no one telling me where to be, when to sleep, when to eat, what to eat. So you have to figure that out. And as a 32-year-old, you sort of psychologically, you sort of feel like, well, all my mates know how to do this. My mates have houses, they have families, they're all sort of set up financially, emotionally, all this sort of stuff. So you start thinking internally and worrying internally, and the pressure then comes back on you. And me being someone who doesn't deal with pressure that well, it turns into a bit of turmoil inside. So there's been ups and downs for me, certainly.
Yeah, I mean, Alex, I completely relate to that. You know, I think we all feel that experience, and I think, you know, the reality is that you can go on competing for much longer in your life now, because we understand so much more about the, you know, physiology, and there is the funding to support you as you go much later in life. So you do develop all these other things like families, etc., when you leave sport, and it is really, really challenging, and it's not an excuse. I think everybody has to go through this. I think we all understand in society now that, you know, our well-being is a difficult thing to manage. I'm not saying that, you know, everyone needs to have, you know, their hand held. That's not what I'm saying at all. But, you know, I think one of the really interesting things for me is when I went into the corporate world, I completely stopped physical exercise, and I had spent the last 25 years of my life, if not more, just doing exercise every day. And then the idea that you go and work and then don't do that, I mean, I'm not saying everybody does do that, but I seem to drop something that was so important to me, and then the subsequent impact on my whole self was just exponential. And it's interesting, you recently wrote an article, and I didn't realize this, because, you know, you went off and did your adventures rowing to the North Pole and all these really cool things, but I hadn't realized that you had also done the same thing, and how actually for us, keying back into our best selves, it was that physical element, the physical side. I mean, my approach is very different to yours, but maybe you could just explain, because that's what we're here to understand. You have such a simple approach. Maybe you could just tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head there. We both left exercise for perhaps slightly different reasons, but it just wasn't a priority to me, because the priority was to figure out how to earn for my family, but also give back time to my family as well, which I had sort of neglected them in that pursuit of gold. So so exercise went by the wayside, and I was okay with that. I needed a physical rest, and that was fine. Um, uh, but it wasn't until 4 years later, until January the 1st, 2020, I sort of woke up. And I'd had various different realizations along the way, and I tried to get back into something, but I didn't really have the motivation to continue it. But what I did on January the 1st, I went out for a run, and it was like 10 minutes. It was literally getting my trainers on and going out. And I thought, right, this is going to be the start. I'm going to start small and get bigger. Over the course of the next sort of 7 days, 2 weeks, whatever, I went out every day, but I didn't do any more than 10 minutes. You know, I did a tiny amount, and I felt okay with that. And what I realized was, even doing a tiny amount, just the process of getting up, getting outside, and doing a small amount changed my day. It wasn't the amount of exercise I was doing; it was just that like formation of a small habit. For the rest of the day, I could sit there at my desk or whatever I was doing and think, oh, it's okay. I've had that covered. You know, I've done something that takes me back to my past. It's something that makes me feel a little bit satisfied about myself. And habits are easy to lose, and they're quite difficult to form, I find. So what I did to make myself carry on doing that, and I wrote about this, I think this is what you're talking about. I wrote about this. I left my trainers by the door, and I hung up the kit. I literally go downstairs in my pants, put on the kit at the back of the door that's hanging on the back of the door. My trainers are already outside, whether it's raining or not, put them in. So when I wake up, I have no excuse. I've got to be quiet because the kids, I can't wake the kids up, or I can't find my kit anywhere. Oh, I'll just go back to bed, or I'll do it tomorrow. I won't do it today. And that excuse doesn't exist. Within 2 minutes, I can be out of my bed, downstairs with kit on, and then I'm out. So I can go for that little jog.
Yeah.
So I think,
that's amazing, because, you know, and it's so simple. It's such a simple thing to put your trainers by the door and hang your kit up. And what's so funny is that, you know, when I do the same thing now. I something is better than nothing to me. Yeah. But almost 3 years ago, you know, I was about 25 kilos heavier than I had finished the Olympic Games, you know, really, really out of shape. And I desperately wanted to get back in shape. But the thought of going to do exercise and then thinking, right, I'm going to go and do an hour or 2 hours, because I could only relate positive training and to what we used to do when we were in the Olympics, and nothing was ever going to be that close. And so that fear of not achieving that 1 hour or 2 hour session or whatever it was would stop me from doing it altogether. And then it would stop me from even hanging my kit up by the door or putting my trainers at the end of the bed. And the biggest change that I made, and it was a piece of advice, and if you ever get a chance to look at, there's a guy called Ben Birch who wrote a blog called Motivation and How to Maintain It. And it is literally exactly the same thing as you said. It is getting out of bed and putting your running gear on immediately and your trainers immediately. And even if you can only do 3 minutes, that's 3 minutes that you've changed your mind, done something different, and been able to step out of that, you know, the normal stresses of everyday life and be able to switch into something else. And your body says to you, thanks very much. And I think what's interesting is that no matter what physical shape, you know, you get into or out of, you know, how unfit you can get, it's that fear of I can't run 26K because I can't walk to the end of my drive because I'm now. And actually, for me, what I want people to understand is it's about making it accessible. You know, my 100% is probably running 100 kilometers, but your 100% might be 1 kilometer. But it's to try and always do whatever that is, and don't think, oh, because I need to run 10K. You know, I've never run 10K, therefore I shouldn't start running, or cycling, or whatever it might be. I've never done 10 press ups, so therefore why should I not do one? it's about changing that barrier to starting. And I think what's really also interesting is, we're talking about, that's the physical element, and I can really key and hang my hat on my well-being on the physical side. If I make that a priority every day, I know that all the other things will come. I'll be able to give them all a little bit of focus. And so for me, it's also about, we all have, on the sort of the mental side, we have so much going into our lives now through all the different mediums of social media and all these kinds of different things, and we're not being selective about what we allow in to influence us, and so we're not connecting into the like-minded communities because it's all coming at once. And the other big change I made was just to say, I'm only going to connect in and be part of the things that I want to be part of, as opposed to just letting everything in. Well, I mean, I don't know if you have any thoughts about that, Alex.
Yeah, that's really cool. I've had loads of thoughts as you were saying them. I'm going to forget them all. But you mentioned social media there, and I feel like I have to mention that. I love it and hate it. As many of us do. I'm sure most people would say this. It's not real. It's not real. You don't see the people's bad days. Nothing is perfect. And in the last 4 years, I've had to accept that I'm not going to be the perfect athlete again, or like, nothing is perfect. So accept that some days I'm going to get outside and do 5 minutes. Other days I might go to 40 minutes, but it doesn't have to be absolutely set to make a massive change to my day and who I am and who I become for that day. So social media is a dangerous thing. And like you say, it's a really great tip there to sort of only use, only see, only read stuff that's going to help you. Another thing that really resonates with my past in sport, and I'm sure you'll have a comment on this as well, is confidence. And when I think about this habit that I've built for each day, I'm actually, without realizing it, building a confidence in myself. I'm not naturally a confident person. And when you talk about when you were 25 kilos heavier, you wanted to be who you used to be, or you wanted to be, instantly that Olympic medalist again. But when we started rowing, thinking about becoming an Olympic medalist was just way too far. So breaking it down into small steps, and I know lots of people talk about breaking things down in small steps, but that's exactly what we're saying here. If you can break things down into tiny steps and build that habit consistently, then before you know it, you'll be a month down the line, 6 months down the line, you'll have been out every day doing your 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever it is, and your internal confidence will build hugely. And when you're internally confident, you tend to be happier and more sort of content with what you're doing. Then pressures from outside don't affect you so much. Social media, other people, social pressures, whatever.
Yeah.
When you find your consistent pathway, or your habit grows stronger naturally anyway. It's almost a self-fulfilling cycle of positivity. Just through starting small steps and make it easy for yourself to start with. That's what
Absolutely.
I'm thinking about at the moment.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think it's interesting. When we were in the Olympic environment, we had all the tools available to us, all the infrastructure available to us to perform, to achieve those small hurdles every day, to tackle that huge, terrifying goal of, like, I'm going to try and win an Olympic medal. I still remember at 15 years old, watching Redgrave and Pinsent cross the finish line, because they were probably the most influential people in my rowing career. And I remember thinking, I want to win that. That's what I want to do. That's my dream. And then going away, and I was in the back seat of the car with my grandfather, and I said to him, I want to win an Olympic gold medal. And he said, right, well, and then the kind of the enormity of what I just said was like, oh my goodness, how do I do that? But actually, we broke it down into little things. We had the infrastructure. And it's so funny how in life now, outside of rowing, there is no framework to hold on to. There is no framework to kind of really, really. So actually, it is more difficult, but there are so many tools available to us. If you like to stay fit, you can wear one of these, fitness watches. Where, mine happens. See how many steps you're taking, see how much faster you're going. It reminds you to move, all that kind of stuff. And even in our own in lives in terms of the financial side, there's so many things that we can do. Financial stress is one of the biggest elements of breaking down, of sort of mental health issues, all sorts of things. And there are so many tools like what we do with WageStream that we have so many other tools out there that can help people's lives. Same on the physical side, and even same on the social side. To connect into the right people. It's funny how we don't always leverage those as individuals. But look, Alex, we've got a couple of questions come in just quickly. We've had one from Alyssa Hildreth. I would love to know, what would be your number one top tip to maintaining well-being? Big question.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, it's mine would be what we've started talking about. Make it easy for yourself to start that habit and continue it consistently. So if you put your trainers by the door, or whatever it is you need to do to make that habit formation really super easy, super simple, super small to start with, build up that consistency, and it will grow and it will fall. One thing there, actually, that's made me realize that, of course, a big part of our lives are our families. And I struggle now, I have struggled with guilt. I have to work at home in my bedroom. We all do at the moment, probably in lockdown or wherever we are. We're all trying to balance that. Homeschooling, looking after the kids, being a good partner, working. How do you do it? How do you do it? And it's taken me ages even now to realize it, having learnt it before. But communication, I've had to tell my family that in the morning, first thing, I'm not going to get breakfast. I'm not going to turn the TV on for them. I'm not doing anything. I have to go out, get my trainers on, and spend half an hour outside doing my exercise. After that, once I've done that, once I've ticked that box, then I can help. And that removed that conversation, that simple conversation, instantly removed the guilt. Okay, they're okay with that because they know I need to do that. They can cope for that time. They can cope anyway, but they can cope for that time. It's just been sort of laid out and planned out. It's formed that little structure. So communication is super important. It's something I have to keep reminding myself and keep relearning. But yeah, that's really helped with that tip for wellness, sort of mental and physical.
Well, that's great. I mean, and that's, and then that's so simple. That's such a simple thing. All you have to do is say it, and then everybody understands. But yet we don't do it. How often do we not do that? We've got a couple more questions come in. So Mark Moore says, as athletes, we've been driven by objectives. What are both Alex's current motivational goals? Have they set any, and how are they going about achieving them now? That's a really, really good question, Mark. Alex, have you got anything on that?
No, I have no goals. No. So definitely, I'm having a realization in life. And actually, when I went on my Arctic row, that was a big turning point for me psychologically, and about who I am and what I want from my life. I was in the middle of the Arctic Ocean. I didn't know if we were going to survive, going to come home. I was being this brave explorer guy, and really I realized that I'd just left my family at home, and I was being so very selfish in that moment. Sometimes you need to do what you need to do. You need to be happy by achieving your goals, but sometimes when you put yourself first, it could have a detrimental effect on those around you. And that was a big sort of wake-up call for me. So my goal now at the moment is, in terms of life and sort of happiness, is to provide a good home environment for my kids. So we moved to this rural part in Somerset. That was the first step, and we're outside. I wrote my book, Dad Ventures, which is about, there's a little plug here, excuse me, but it's about getting kids outdoors and trying to help parents take that first step and make that easy step that we're talking about with habit forming, with well-being, but for kids and getting kids outdoors. So it's all my book is about an intention or giving people an idea for an intention to get outside. Once they're outside, they can fulfill the activity or not, it doesn't matter, but they've been outside. And so that's kind of my motivation at the moment, to do that for myself and help others do that.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, that's amazing. I think that's awesome, and it's so interesting. So, just to touch on my goals, I mean, my goal really is about making sure that at least 50% of my part of my life, my day, is about helping other people. And for me, I can do that through WageStream every day, all day. It's really interesting to be part of a purpose socially focused business, because I feel fulfilled every day that I'm making a difference to be able to kind of help tackle a serious problem in society around poverty and access to fair financial products, etc. So that's for me is great, but it's also interesting. Like, I've just decided I'm going to do an Ironman, because for me, if I don't have that physical goal, then I can kind of wander. Whereas now I know my identity is, every day I wake up, I am going to be an Ironman. I don't know if this is going to work out. It could be a very slow one, but it means that I can focus around the decisions and life decisions that I make around that. And then, just like you, I think the most important thing for me is to create an environment for my children and my family to thrive. And that's why I focus so much on being able to make sure they can key into all the positive aspects of the physical, social, the mental, and also just create a positive financial environment for them. We've got a really two more questions, and then I'm conscious of everybody's time. I think, Alex, you've been incredible to have you here today. We've got a question from Mark Pugh, who, like a lot of people, has just been through furlough and got into exercise every day. I think my Strava profile went through the roof over lockdown, because I had never done as much exercise since I think I crossed the finish line in London. But like a lot of people, he's now facing this challenge, that he's back at work, and can't exercise as much, and it's really affecting his well-being. Have you got any advice around that?
Oh, that is a tricky one. I think my mind immediately jumps back to that idea we talked about: nothing can be perfect, and any little glimpse of, look, being at home in lockdown just gives you time that you didn't have before, and isn't necessarily realistic to daily life anyway. So if you can grab that moment, it won't be as long. It won't necessarily be as long as you had before. But if you can grab that moment, make it easy for you to grab that moment and take it. That's the balance you're going to have to fight with and challenge yourself with, I think. But you can get satisfaction. You can get satisfaction from small things, and it's about, I think, about an element about
understanding it doesn't have to be perfect. Yeah. I think that. Yeah, I agree, Alex. I think I struggle with the same frustration. If I plan out, this is what I want to do, and I don't achieve that, then then I don't think I'm doing enough. But actually, it's having the mindset, just like you said right at the beginning, of, if I can do 5 minutes, it's better than nothing. And if you're really struggling with work, there is always going to be some time in the day where you can do it, and my advice is, if you can, try and get it done first thing, because then it's done, and then you've done it. When you get to the end of the day, we had another question here about really struggling with the motivation. I think the hardest thing for me is, if I know I want to do something after I finish work, I'm exhausted from the day. I'm exhausted from the work that we've done in the day, and it's really, really difficult to motivate myself to do it. And I often won't do it. And I think struggling with motivation is always going to be there. So if you can just find a way to just take those first steps in the morning, it doesn't have to be much. That will fulfill you and help you achieve it, and it means it's ticked off and it's done. That would be my best bit of advice. But look, Alex,
very quickly on that, I've got to say, I feel like I want to say, talking to people also, you've become very isolated when you're worrying about yourself not meeting those goals that you've set yourself. But actually, when you start talking to your mate or someone on the phone, or you and me, then you realize that actually everyone's in the same situation. Everyone's got maybe a helpful tip or something to avoid, an idea to avoid. Do talk to people. Don't just mull over in your head. because I think that helps. So that's certainly my tendency to mull it over in my head and keep it in, but actually it always helps. It's like parenting. When I'm worried about something happening with my kids, I'm like, we're the worst parents ever. We're the only parents who can do this. You go down the pub, or not the pub at the moment, when you go down the pub and talk to your mate about it, actually they're living the same thing and you didn't realise, and actually, oh, it's okay. Yeah. It's okay.
Yeah.
So
And I think that's, you know, when you think about exercise, I really hate doing exercise on my own. But if I tell you I'm going to meet you tomorrow morning at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:15 in the morning or even earlier, and we're going to go for a run, I will always be there. So making yourself accountable to somebody else and being part of that shared community that wants to achieve the same thing, you'll always get more out of yourself. We did it when we were rowing. We always showed up because we could never let each other down. So look, I mean, we've had some amazing questions come through, but I think we're going to have to wrap it up here. We've had a wonderful 42 minutes with Alex Gregory, and I hope that everyone has found that really, really useful about how to keep your approach to well-being simple. I mean, the world is very complex. The crucial thing for me is that, you know, if you want to be your best self, there are 4 elements that you always need to keep dialing into. You need to look at what are you doing in your physical self, and that's about what is best for you, but it's something, you know, you got to do your 100%. It's about that social side. So social well-being, you know, we're all isolated, we're not connecting we're connecting via virtually so much now, but actually connect in with other people, be accountable to them, connect in with the right people that have the same shared values as you, the same purpose, and you will achieve so much more. On the mental side, it's give yourself that time, even if it's just a little bit of the quiet to reflect. And then on the financial side, it's try to, if no matter what your situation is, it can get better. It can get better. It's about reaching out for the right help and the right tools around you. But look, Alex, super grateful to have you here. An amazing history in rowing. If you have one bit of advice to everybody to leave this call, what would it be around your well-being?
Keep small things matter. Keep it simple. Make it easy for yourself. Yeah.
Keep it simple, make it easy for yourself. Well, look, thanks very much, Alex. Look, if anybody has any questions that they want to follow us up with after this, please do drop us a line at WageStream Central, or contact me on me and Alex on LinkedIn or Twitter. We're always happy to help anybody any way we can. And look, everybody have an amazing Friday, amazing weekend, and remember, get out there and do something. Thanks very much, Alex. Thank you.
See you. Speak soon.